Hey guys, how are you? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing a review of another Latin film that I saw at the Latin Film Festival here in Canberra. This is going to be my number 2 film, so the other films that I reviewed I have posted on, so if you want to catch up on them, please feel free to do so. So I was going to rate these out of 5, so I've done the bottom 3 and now it's time for the top 2. So this one is an action film from Venezuela. This is spoken in the Spanish language with English subs, released in the year 2010, directed by Diego Velasco, and this movie is called The Zero Hour. So The Zero Hour takes place in the 1990s in Venezuela. Now, at this time, the government had basically said the medical services, so the people working in hospitals, doctors, nurses, have gone on strike because they haven't got enough money. Now, this thing happens in South America, and you'd think that in Australia or USA, this stuff would never happen. So it comes as a big shock because even in Argentina, not long ago, the police went on strike. So it's just a really a bizarre situation that happens in South America. So basically, in the 1990s, the Venezuelan health authorities went on strike because they weren't getting paid enough money, and this caused havoc. So this hitman who works in the slums of Venezuela, he is rushing in a victim. Now, he appears to have shot someone, and for reasons I'm not going to go into, he has rushed into the hospital. So, because the hospital aren't working, he forces them to work. Basically, him and his henchmen, they threaten them with guns. They say, save this woman's life, otherwise we're going to kill you, basically. So this is what happens, and it's a fight for survival for this victim, and the hospital workers have to save her unless they want to die themselves. So it's a very tense situation that boils over in a very thrilling climax. To prevent myself from giving away too much, that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. If you want to know more, please go out there and see this film for yourself. Now, my thoughts on this Venezuelan film. This is a really fine introduction into Venezuelan cinema. I thought this was a really suspenseful action film. It's a very brutal film. I will say that it's by far the most brutal film out of the whole film festival, or the ones that I saw. I thought the acting was very good, and I thought it symbolized the problems with not only Venezuela, but South America in general. There's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of underpaid people who work in very important areas. And when these people go on strike, you can sense that the government doesn't know what they're doing. So it's really, it's not so much a black mark against society, it's a black mark against the corruption of the governments. And as I said, it not only happens in Venezuela, but other countries in South America also. And it seems to be rife in South America. Now, I know these sorts of things, they might happen everywhere else, but it seems to happen a lot more in this South American continent. The most beautiful continent on the planet, mind you, but there's so many problems. But having said that, it's still a continent that I would say definitely go and see because it has so much beauty and there's a lot more positives than there are negatives. But this movie, it really depicts the negatives of that certain time in Venezuela, and I thought it was just ludicrous that these people who work in such an important industry can just say no, wipe their hands clean of it and say we're not going to do anything until we're paid. So that was just shocking. But I really like the way the film does it. It's, on one hand, it's a society, it's a blight on society, it's a blight on the government, it's just a symbolisation of everything wrong. And then on the other hand, you've got a really thrilling action film. And I thought the guy who played the hitman was really, really good, very menacing. At some points you think he's likeable, at other points you think he's nasty. I really like that. I really like the connection he had with his henchmen. And then the movie goes along, and then there are some twists and turns in there that I thought made it really worthwhile. So the soundtrack was very good. The action sequences were shot very well. I'm not sure how big this budget was, but I thought it looked pretty enough. I mean, when I say pretty, it looks stylish enough. It's not a pretty film. It's set in the poor areas of Venezuela, so the way of life in Venezuela, the slums, is a different way of life everywhere else. So it's an insight into the poorer atmospheres, and as I said, an insight into how the government works, but the majority of the film is based on action. There are some shocking death scenes. As I said, it was a very brutal film, which is something that caught me by surprise. And considering that this is pretty much the only action film in the Latin Film Festival, I was going to have this as my number 1 because it was right up there as number 1 until the last film I saw. I'm not going to give anything away about that one, but that was just fantastic. But this movie was also fantastic, and I would highly recommend it to anybody out there who is a fan of action films. So overall, for this movie, I'm going to give it 4 stars. It came as a shock because I heard nothing about it. Venezuela, nothing known about their film industry as far as I'm concerned, but I thought this is a really good introduction. So 4 stars, definitely recommended. Hope you enjoyed this review. This was my number 2 from Venezuela. Next review will be of my number 1 film. And so that's it. Until next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.